Hey guys, my name's Steve, and today I'm going to be showing you how to modify your Xbox One Kinect to work with PC, Xbox, and the Xbox One S and One X using the 3D Abyss Shroud. So let's start. So here are some things you're going to need. First thing is you're going to need your 3D Abyss Shroud here, your stock Xbox Kinect 1. You're going to need some sort of soldering iron. So it doesn't really matter if it's high quality or not. This is a Radio Shack soldering iron. I know Radio Shack went out of business, but this is just what I have around. My welder is somewhere missing in action. So just some sort of soldering iron. You're going to need some thin solder. It doesn't matter, lead or lead-free. Lead-free is just less environmentally harmful to you, but it does have a higher melting point, making it harder to work with. You will need a T10 security bit, Torx, so it just has a hole in the middle. Some other optional things, so these aren't necessary, but do make it a little bit easier, is a razor blade, some sort of snips, and a heat gun of some sort. You can also use, your girlfriend's blow dryer or whatnot. That will also work. It'll just take a little bit longer. So, all right, let's start. So the very first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to remove this cable. So this cable technically isn't designed to be removed. Inside there's a rubber grommet. I'm not sure if you can see that. There's a little rubber grommet that goes around, and there's a plastic piece. So the rubber grommet is what actually keeps this fully embedded, so it doesn't come out. But with a little bit of force, it will come out. Though this connector is pointed 45 degrees downward, you will not be pulling this 45 degrees out. You'll be pulling it orthogonal to the face, so you're going to be pulling straight back. So we're going to do that right now. It does require a little bit of force, so there it is. So here's that piece. So the OEM designed this actually pretty well, because if you look, there's a plastic piece right here, and that holds grip the inside of your Kinect to prevent it from coming apart. So during, when your kids are playing or you're using your Kinect, if someone wiggles this cable or pulls on it, it's not going to harm the connector inside, and that's why these supports were made on this. So since we're replacing this with a USB 3.0 cable, we won't have that same sort of support from the cable itself. So in this case, the design of this shroud actually, if you can tell, makes the hole significantly smaller. This way, when your cable is being tugged, you're not going to have an issue with it breaking your PCB or falling out. The inside also is elongated here to prevent that kind of sagging, so the actual cable will rest on top of this. All right, so now it's time to remove this open. Under here, you're going to see two massive stickers. So under here, there are four screws, security screws. If you care about these stickers, I would recommend heating them up with a heat gun first, and then using a razor blade to take that out. If you don't care about these stickers or you plan on replacing them, you can always just cut straight through here. It doesn't really matter, but we're going to do that next. So here's my heat gun, and here's my razor blade, and I'm going to heat this up first. I'll try to allow it so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to heat this up, and I'm going to remove the edges here. You don't want to go too aggressive on this, because it will cause the plastic to warp. If you're using a hairdryer, it should be perfectly fine. Alright, so it is hot to the touch. Alright. We're just going to go under the edge here and carefully remove this. Sometimes if you encounter some sort of resistance, you can always use the heat gun once again. So these are actually in very good condition. We can actually save them. Set that aside. You can actually reuse them. That should be good. Granted, these stickers actually weren't put on very good by Microsoft themselves. This is the security side. This will leave a residue that says Microsoft if they did it correctly. There we go. We're just peeling that back slowly. And there we go. You can kind of see part of the Microsoft residue of the security. But so in here, there are four screws on each side. These two are T10 security bit screws. These are just standard T10s. You can use the same bit for all of them, so that shouldn't matter. The ones towards the back are longer, and the ones towards the center are the smaller ones. So now we're going to take this apart. It doesn't matter in which order you take them apart. They are a little challenging though sometimes, because so that's one bit. These are the short ones. There are going to be four of them. These are the long ones. You can see they're significantly longer. They're very difficult to get confused, just as long as you remember where they are. So the next part is what I find actually the most difficult, and that is actually removing all the plastic bits. So the bottom part's easy. It pops up, and it should slide right out. There you go. There's your bottom piece. You can set that aside. And then under that, you'll see there are two more screws. So here's one, and here's another one. Sorry if the lighting's poor. Those screws will hold the shroud on. So they're also the same bit, so I'll show you right here. In the installation process, these can be omitted if necessary. They're not necessarily there for any sort of support because there are support pins. So once these are removed, these are the same as the short screws that we took out earlier. Alright. Okay, there we go. That's that one. After that, this shroud will come out. So the fan is pressure fit in, and then the bottom port, so you just slide it up, and then you'll pop it out. So there is your stock shroud. Here's your stock fan. And the next part is somewhat difficult. So this will be replaced with this. And the next part is removing this top piece. So the top piece is actually clipped in 4 locations. 1, 2, 3, 4. To pull this off, some people bend it up and pull it out, but that tends to cause a lot of strain on this area here. So I find it actually easier to remove the screws from the front shroud, and then remove the whole shroud and then detach it. So you'll push this forward, and these side vents will come off on each side. They're very easily, they're just slid in there. And once they're slid in, you'll see down here, right here, there's another torque screw. So there's one on each side. So once this has been removed, you can turn this around. Here's the second one. So that has been removed. You can take that out. Okay. So once that's removed, you can bend this back. These will be clipped in at the very bottom on each side, and you just have to give it a little bit of love and pull it off. It might feel a little painful at first, and that's because it kind of is, but so as you can see, it's starting to come off already, and we just got to give it a little tug. This is probably the most difficult part in my opinion. Alright, because you have to juggle between multiple. Okay, there's the one, and then here's the other one. Alright, so the whole unit now is removed. Okay, that comes off. So this thing is completely off now. Alright, so now is the next part. So this part now you can see at the bottom where the clips are. Here's one. So if I just pop that out, and then I pop that out, and pop that out, the top part comes off fairly easily. So I could reinstall this right now if I want to. That's ready. So this next part's going to be probably the most difficult. So on here you'll see there are sets of pins. Okay, just here's the fan, here's your set of pins. So these are the set of pins that we want. So the ones we want are number 10 and a ground. So this big block here is ground, and this one right here, this small one, is the 10. So 10 is positive, and this is ground. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to install our shroud. So the shroud's going to come like this. The nice part about this is it's actually increased depth. So as you can see, it's thicker than the original, and the reason for that is it's to house the new components. If you were not to thicken the base plate, these would protrude out significantly, which would then touch this base plate, which is ground. And a lot of sellers that do modify these, it tends to be that they just put a bunch of like masking tape or electrical tape here to prevent it from hitting when you plug it in. But this is actually held in. There's a seat that the socket sits in, and then there is a ginormous nut in the back here. So rest assured, this is not going to fall out on you anytime soon. So to install this, what we're going to do is we're going to pull out the wires. They come pre-stripped to close to the correct length. They're a little bit longer. You take the fan, and once again, it's just pressure fit in. So you just stick it in there. It's pressure fit in. You slide this shroud in. There are 2 alignment holes at the bottom. So once your alignment is good on the bottom here, you can actually slide this up. Okay, you'll be able to see it. So okay, here we go. There's a little stub here, and then there's another stub here. So once those 2 are aligned, you can press down on that, and they should click in. Oh, there it goes. Clicks in. At this point in time, you can put these 2 screws in. It's not actually necessary since they'll click in. But if you want, I will show you that the screws do go in. So I'm going to screw that one in. Okay, and we're going to screw the second one in as well, and that'll hold it in place. Drop the screw. A magnetic tip driver would be fantastic on this, but cannot find mine. Alright, so we are going to... Don't over-tighten these, they'll cause them to crack, and no one wants that. So, here we go. So here is what it looks like from the top now. And what we want to do is we want to wire this positive here, and we want to wire this negative right here. So to some people this is going to be probably the most challenging part because it's soldering, but have no fear, this is actually one of the easier parts. This is also optional. What you can do is, right here, there is a sheet of metal. I like to give it a little snip, just to kind of like clean it up a bit, and just a very light slip. So what this does is, the wire itself will rest on this piece, which is actually rather sharp, and our goal is to reduce the amount of issues as possible. So we'll push this down, and then that'll give a little space for our wire to sit there. So you might want to be cautious because sometimes these don't necessarily go your way. So this one didn't. This one is held on by a very small piece here, which I'm just going to remove for safety, and I'm going to pull it out. You never want anything hanging in your system because that is a sure way to short everything out. All right. The next part is going to be, I guess, if you don't know how to solder, it's going to be a little difficult. If you do, it's fine. These are rosin flux core piece solder. So I'm going to just put a little bit on the tip of each one of these. Try not to breathe in these fumes, they are not good for you. Okay? And then I'll do a little bit on this side. Alright. That might be a little bit too much. So our positive is on this side and our negative is on this side. So I'm going to do the negative first. So negative is just this big piece here. So I'm going to hold this, and I'm just going to try to solder those together. In theory, you want these to be shorter. But I mean, that's entirely up to you. Because, the shorter, you run into less messes. So that one's actually soldered on. I'm not sure if you can tell. That one's soldered on. The next one is going to be the 10. So the 10 is actually a really small pin. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to snip this much shorter. Make sure you don't lose the end. Always hold on to it. And with the 10 shorter, I can actually put it right up against it, like that. I'm going to move the camera so hopefully you can tell what's going on. So it's going to go, let's see. Sorry, I really fixed this tight. Alright, so here we go. Alright. Okay, so the 10 needs to go there. So once again, I'm going to get a little bit of solder on this pin. Okay. I'm going to drive it down here, right onto the 10, to be as careful as possible, not to disturb any of the other pins. Okay. There you go. So that is now connected on. You can tell the negative is connected, the positive is connected, and what's also nice is you can, I'm actually going to round this edge here, because I do not like the fact the edge is sharp. Okay, so now you have these two connected. Alright, so once these two are connected, it is time for reassembly. So as you remember, our front plate, now it's time for reassembly, but it's always actually a good practice. If you don't have one of these, it's okay, but if you do, you have a voltmeter. This is really cheap. I got it at Harbor Freight. I actually think it was free. So what we do is we're going to put it on ohms to check for continuity. So if we have the two probes here and we touch them next to each other, it gives us a 0 reading saying that they're connected. So we're going to touch this positive pin here, and then we're going to touch the positive pin, which is the center pin. And yeah, we have continuity. And then here's a negative, and then we have the negative. And yeah, so that means these are connected properly. So we don't have to worry about that. So next we have our original shroud. Actually, I have it in the wrong orientation. That rubber piece came off. So here we go. We're just going to, so it goes under. This is actually kind of tricky because there's hinges, and the hinges at the bottom here, as you can see, tend to be just not a good time. Not a good time to put them on. So I usually try to angle it downward first, so I can hit the hinges, and then if I can hit the hinges, then I can pull it up. And I can get to. All right, hold on, give me a second. This shouldn't be this difficult, but it generally is. I don't know why. It's just how I find it. So we're gonna try to hook that on. Okay, there we go. There we go. So now this is. You want to make sure that's in. That is in. So if you recall, we had two small screws on each side. So there's one here, which I'm gonna place right down there. Tweezers would help in this aspect, but I mean, once again, not needed. So I'm gonna tighten that down. Once again, these don't need to be super tight. They're just there to lightly hold this in. Microsoft does, however, kindly give you this slot for a screwdriver. If you can see from the top here, there's a little slot there for a screwdriver. However, my screwdriver's too big and it doesn't fit, and I didn't want to buy a separate kit to just remove this, so that'll do. Okay, so the next part is the top shroud here. So the top shroud has a metal piece that used to go here, and I just snipped it across. It's optional, you don't have to snip this off. It doesn't do much, except for create a shield here to continue, but since we have new wires here, at minimum, you're going to want to take off at least these two. I just went all the way across, it's easier. So the camera cut out, so we didn't see that part. So this portion, you line these up, and they'll click in. You'll hear a little click. There it is. And then before you do that, we have these side pieces. Side piece has a little notch at the top, and that signifies top. So one goes on this side. Okay, that's down. And the other one just slides right in here. They're pretty easy to slide in, so if you're putting force in, you're doing it wrong. And that pulls down. Alright, and then for our final assembly portion, we're going to lift this up. Here's our final shroud, and this goes in really easily. It just, once you align it, it should pop down just like that. So the next thing is, we have the original assembly screws. So you also want to make sure these are in all the way. Yeah, there we go, that's good. So the long ones go on the outside. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. The small ones are internal. I actually like to just start out with the large ones, in no particular order whatsoever, as long as you get them down snug. So, there we go. It's nice and snug. And snug. And then we have these short screws, which there are 4 of. Once again, these are all the same thread pitch, so you don't have to really worry about them. As long as you know which one's long, which one's short, you should be okay. So we're going to start over here. Okay, that's in. This last step is, just for cosmetics, but if you recall the pieces we removed, we can actually just stick them back in, line them up, and stick them back in. I don't know if you still have any more elasticity, but there we go. It's a Microsoft side. And then we have this part here, which goes back in, and there we go. That is the other side. And then now you have it. Your Kinect is now modified to run on a PC. So the next thing we do is we test it. So we have our USB 3.0 cable, and we just plug this in, and there we go. So the nice part is you can see how there's very little slack or play in the cable, so it's not going to move. And then the bottom portion is we can also plug in. And here's our power supply. You can plug this in. There you go. And this is now ready to use. So I want to make note that this is very important. Some other, the reason why this was redesigned was so that we could use, a specific cable. So as you see, the stock one has this rubber grommet. You can go in there too, but it'll move around. The actual hole is ginormous, so once this is in there, it can move around, which will cause strain. And you can see this on a stock unit here, is that once I plug this in, I could easily move this around. I don't want to do it too hard because I don't want to break this, but you could easily do that around. Also, this grommet here is, since it's not designed to be in here without the plug, the stock plug, it can move around and break too. So, the last thing we have to do with our Kinect is to boot it up and test it. So let's do that. So here's actual footage from the Xbox that we just modified, and you can see this is our workspace. This was the jank webcam I was using before. So the video quality is actually not bad. You can plug it into any PC or Xbox One S or One X. So there you have it. This is that's how you modify a Xbox One to run on the One S or One X platform. And this is actually a really sturdy way to do it because none of these wires are going to pop out or move on you. So the only things you need after this mod are USB 3.0 cable and the 12 volt, at least 3 amp. I see people running 1 or 2 amps, and I have put this on a kilowatt where it does draw up to 35, 34 watts. So you want something that will be able to take the power and the draw. So you might run into power issues with a 2 amp. So any standard 5.5 by 2.1 millimeter jack, which is pretty much all of the ones you see, will power this no problem. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, leave a like, and let me know if there's anything else I can do.